Hey, Cut the Shit listeners. You can find every episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube. Go check us out. Welcome back, everybody. You're listening to Cut the Shit, a podcast series that aims to take a closer look at the impact of the IT industry, both the good and the bad. Cut the Shit is brought to you by Plow Networks, a managed IT services company based just outside Nashville, Tennessee. I'm Brian Link, COO here at Plow, and I'll be your host for this series. I'll ask questions, and with the help of our guests, try to dig deep on some of the key challenges we all face dealing with IT. So with that, let's cut the shit and get started. On today's episode, I am very excited to have Chris Shubert as our guest. Chris serves as VP of Channel Sales for AppDirect, a business services platform company for technology providers. Chris has been with AppDirect for almost 6 years, and he's been in his current role for almost half of that time. Given his role and experience in sales, I was able to get Chris to share his perspective on where he believes technology and service sales is going, what's going well and not so well in the space, and the role that research and teaching/training platforms are going to play in the future of buying and selling. I hope you enjoy my conversation with Chris Shubert. Chris, welcome to Cut the Shit. How are you today?
Doing great, Brian. And got to tell you, I'm probably not the first person to say this. I love the title of this podcast. It's my fave.
Yeah, it was funny when we first came up with it. We weren't sure. I mean, we were obviously trying to be a little cheeky, right? That's what we were going for. But it came out of a conversation. You'll appreciate this. It came out of a conversation about sales, and about salespeople in particular. My two founders, Bryan and Cameron, are both. They're sales guys. That was their career before they started Plow. And obviously, if you start a company, you all of a sudden become the chief salesperson, whether you want to or not. You may not think you wanted to do that, but that's the seat you find yourself in. And we were literally sitting around talking, kind of griping about some sales stuff, and Cut the Shit came out of that discussion. And so it just sort of stuck. So I appreciate it. I'm glad you like it. I don't know if everybody does, but sometimes you got to be a little bit polarizing to make it work. So,
well, I'm about as non-traditional as they come in the role of the sales VP. So trust me, anything that's a little crazy, I'm in for.
Good. Well, this should be a fun conversation then. Excellent. So
awesome.
Before we dive into the meat of the discussion, I like to start just asking, can you give us an example of an interesting use of technology or a hack that maybe you've seen lately, either at work or could be in your personal life?
Well, I will tell you one that has changed everything for me is really embracing AI. Now, I'm sure there's been other folks that have said, "Oh yeah, we got to do AI," but let me tell you how exactly it's changed everything for me. First and foremost, you need to pick one platform. Okay, I'm a big Gemini guy. We're a Google shop here at AppDirect. Google phone, Google everything except for my computer, which happens to be a Mac. Go figure. But pick a platform and pick one that is established. In other words, there's a lot of fly-by-night little companies that are coming around to be digital assistants, help you with stuff. And quite frankly, the security around some of those platforms should be of concern for folks. I mean, TikTok's not the only thing that's owned by weird areas and houses their data in weird places. But once you've picked that platform, Gemini has really changed everything for me. And the biggest piece is using it in all of my meetings that I have, allowing me to be more present, not having to worry about taking notes. But I'll tell you, it's more than just the note taking. I don't know about you, Brian, but I'm getting to a point in my life, career, age, that it's really hard to keep up with the influx of information that's coming in. And having a digital assistant that can take those notes and whom I can ask a question about those notes, that's invaluable. And then beyond that, just having the ability to ask something other than just a standard web search, detailed information about a topic that understands the context of the way I operate, that's invaluable. So I would tell you, pick a platform. Microsoft Copilot's another great one out there. Meta is cooking up some really cool stuff. Pick one that is established, has a really good security policy, and then just go all in. Because the more you go into it, the more beneficial it becomes to you. And to the point where I can ask it to summarize a 35-page email thread down to one paragraph, be accurate 95% of the time, and allow me to be a heck of a lot more productive. So that would be my big thing, man, is pick that assistant, go all in, and find the one that's best for you.
Gotcha. Well, that's perfect because, that's been a challenge, I think, for a lot of people is to figure out how to make these tools work for them, right? In the sense of, the sort of the, their capabilities, right? They're not plug and plays where you do this and then X, right? It's not that straightforward. So you've got to train it. You've got to get used to using it. You kind of got to get accustomed to the mechanism. And it sounds like you're there. So congratulations.
Yeah, I'm getting the chip installed next week. That's going to be painful, but I think worth it.
There you go. All right, well, let's get to the main event. So to get us started, how about you give us a quick thumbnail sketch on your background, sort of how you got from kind of early in your career to sort of where you are today at AppDirect.
Oh, Greg, always appreciate that question. Just so folks know that I didn't come out of nowhere. This is a 25-year plus success story that really started back in the late 90s during the dot-com boom. I was just a standard run-of-the-mill sales rep doing my thing. And I stumbled across Channel, basically because the company I was with at the time, which due to the dot-com bust doesn't exist anymore, they didn't know what to do with the channel. They just had folks that were referring leads over. I'm like, okay, well, let's find out what this is about. I don't want a cold call. Let's find out what this is. And I got introduced to this incredibly fun world of the channel. And the channel means a lot of things to a lot of different people. So,
yeah, I was going to say, hang on. Let me give you one caveat. The audience for this podcast, for the most part, is on the buying side, right? A lot of clients and folks at clients that we serve. So some of the language they may not be familiar with. So help us out here. Talk some about what the channel is. I mean, I know what it is, but let's talk about that so that they understand what that means. I mean, it's obvious once you start talking about it, but it's lingo and language they don't always use.
Yeah, absolutely. The channel, again, lots of different definition out there, but for me, channel is based around passionate entrepreneurs that become experts in technology services to help their customers make the right decision. So those types of partners became my life's blood. I love seeing entrepreneurs succeed, but more importantly, these entrepreneurs, these channel partners, as they're often referred to, brought me in to really weird, crazy problems for customers that I got to fix with technology. And that was awesome. Coming out of that particular internet carrier, I ended up at a very, very long-standing tenure at multiple companies that were all part of the Windstream family of companies. And at Windstream, especially, it was kind of sort of their heyday in the channel. We were on the cusp of the conversion from copper-based internet to fiber-based internet, traditional voice to unified communications, moving from on-premise systems to data center and cloud. And it was the thing I loved about it. And the thing I love about this industry, Bryan, is so there's always something new and cool. Along that way, I worked my way out from just working as what is called a channel manager, the person who works with those lovely entrepreneurial advisors, into several leadership positions. And then about 5 years ago, I stumbled into the world of AppDirect. For those that may not be familiar with us, AppDirect is a company based around helping customers find, buy, and manage their technology solutions via advisors. And they do that often through a marketplace platform, which allows the customer to select, find information, buy products directly online, interface with that advisor, that entrepreneurial channel partner I mentioned, to get advice on what to do. And it's been a fantastic journey here. I assumed control of the overall channel side of our business about 3 years ago, and manage a team about 25 different folks that are scattered across the country, helping both the entrepreneurs out there, but also customers in advising them on what's the best way to handle their technology spend. What is a strategy that encompasses and teaches them how all these different things connect together, from the data to the voice, to the cloud, to the security, to the mobility. It's a lot. And I would say our core job, at the end of the day, for all of the folks listening out there, when you're working with AppDirect or you're working with one of our advisors, we're here to kind of demystify things, might be cutting the shit, if you will, around some of the weirdness in technology. Because the reality is, even if you just go and ask an AI tool, there's a lot of context around technology that you as an end user, customer, IT director, whomever you have to be, that you may not know. And it's the job of those advisors and those folks over at AppDirect to help you with that, so that you don't make costly mistakes. That's probably the nastiest thing I see in my industry. And in my career here is when you have to fix something that somebody else broke through either poor salesmanship, which might have just been misguided information, or sometimes poorly guided financial direction. A CFO saying, hey, you need to cut all your costs no matter what. And the IT director is going, but wait, that will cripple our company. And yet the decision still happens. So figuring out how to clean that stuff up is what fires me up and gets me out of bed in the morning. Obviously, I like to advise on new solutions more than clean up the problems, but it's par for the course with what we do.
Sure. So you mentioned a couple of different pieces of the puzzle, if you will. So I want to try to tease that out a little, because what we're talking about here, or at least this is what I call it. Maybe you don't, and if you don't, that's fine. Feel free to correct me. But AppDirect to me is what I'd call a technology-enabled sales platform. Okay, so maybe that's not the right, but I'm trying to put in my mind. We're trying to put words together to combine both this sort of marketplace technology-enabled web-based thing that people think of as, well, if you're going to give some sort of analog to most people, like, oh, you mean like going to Amazon to buy stuff? And it's like, well, sort of, but not really, right? Because there's mediation in this relationship, both at the advisor level, which would be, I would consider that to be the primary customer relationship, right? And then you guys have a layer that's then working with them to help make those decisions or help facilitate good decisions about buying out of that platform. Is that a fair characterization of what goes on at AppDirect?
Very close. And what's really difficult in this organization is if you work in technology for any length of time, you realize there's about 6 names for everything and 12 acronyms that all come back to the same thing.
Yeah. It makes it real easy. Yeah.
But you're really close. I think the better analogy versus Amazon is actually closer to Zillow, because with Amazon, you typically are you're going there and you're buying just a widget. You're buying your favorite bottle of shampoo at this point, or your favorite author, your Kindle book, whatever it happens to be. What we tend to do is something a little bit more complicated and more important, which is where the analogy to Zillow comes in. Everybody, during the real estate booms anyway, tends to know what Zillow is and they work with it, right? You go on, you research, you see all the different properties in the area, you see different types of homes, you see a cost, et cetera. But ultimately, if you want to do anything of note, you're going to have to engage with that real estate agent. Same thing here. The majority of AppDirect's customers come to us originally with just a problem. They come to one of our advisors and say, hey, I need to optimize my Microsoft licensing. My costs have gotten out of control. And that advisor brings them into us. We take a look at that Microsoft product and we help the customer optimize it, get it rocking and rolling. But along the way, we give them access to a marketplace that they have affect the ability to control their IT spend, view how those Microsoft Office or licenses are attributed, and then see all the things that connect to it. So within that marketplace, they can research a quote from, say, AT&T, or they can buy an additional Adobe license. But it's always with the helping arms around them of that advisor who originally brought them into the fold. And that human being element to me is super crucial. Like I said, I love AI. Love my little Gemini assistant. I'll go pat it on the head a little bit later and give it a dog biscuit. But which is something to see, by the way. But you've got to have a human element, because these solutions are constantly changing. And then sometimes, quite frankly, whether it's an AI tool or the sales rep for those individual companies, they're well-meaning, but they're driven by the marketecture that somebody's given them. So they're always going to tell you, guess what, Bryan? I am the best carrier of all time. Everybody loves me. I have white glove customer service, and we excel in everything you could possibly ask for. That's not true. And the two things that kind of separate that are, customer reviews, which you can see in our marketplaces, but also that advisor element to help direct them, to help make sure that they're picking the right providers, the right products and services. And I don't see that going away at all. You're always going to need to have, if you're IT director worth your weight, you're always going to want to have the best technology, reviews, marketplace, stuff like that. But you're also going to need to have a human being there to help direct you. And that's what AppDirect really does, is meld those worlds together via that telecommunications services platform.
Gotcha. All right. That's helpful. Because it's interesting. You brought up a point that I want to kind of push on a little bit with you. And that's We talk a lot at Plow about, we can say we sell all day long, but what we're really trying to do is help people buy. And it may sound like semantics, but it's not, right? Because there's a huge difference, right? There are people out there who can be successful at selling things to people, meaning stuff they don't really want and don't really need. And there's almost always remorse over that. And that's usually not the basis upon which a long-term relationship is built, right? If you can help people buy things and they feel like those are solutions that really solve their problems, now we're talking, right? We've got the potential for long-term relationships. So I want to go back and revise what I said before, because I called it a sales platform, but it kind of sounds like a buying platform in the sense of helping people be better buyers. Is that a fair characterization?
That is a wonderful characterization and ties right again into our mission statement, helping customers find, buy, and manage. Notice I didn't say sell to. Find, buy, and manage their technology solutions via advisors. And you mentioned the sales piece, because chances are, if you've ever worked in sales, you might have every once in a while had a little shame in saying what you do for a living. You're at that holiday dinner and someone asks
People
you
go,
what you say. It's like,
yeah,
I'm in sales. I'm like, ew, gross.
yeah,
Because people assume that are not in our lovely field. A lot of times that sales is about getting someone to do something. And there may be some sales versions that are like that. The guy who calls you in on the phone trying to sell magazines, probably. But I would argue in our world, the role of the advisor and the role of AppDirect is we're here to help people. And if you wake up every morning with the idea of how can I help a customer? How can I help solve a problem for someone? That's amazing. I've dealt with these situations where, to those fires where we've had networks that have the worst architecture in the world. Everything is designed to break. And at that point, you're not selling anything. You're using all the tools at your disposal, the different providers and services, to fix a problem. And that's really what AppDirect's, whether it's our platform or our people, is really designed to do. And really, that should be what every customer IT professional that's listening to this podcast should be expecting from whatever sales professional they work with. Is like, how are you here to help me?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So talk to me a little bit about the advisors themselves. How do you guys go about identifying them? They are in many ways, they're not your customers, but they're a critical component to the value chain, if you will, not to go all business schooly, but they matter a lot. So how do you guys deal with that particular, that very important link in your chain, so to speak?
Well, the big thing around our advisors is they're very their business focuses has a ton of different variations and differences. There are folks that are managed service providers. There are folks that are true just communications consultants. We also have advisors that typically are in a completely different field, but their customers are always asking them about things. A good example is a commercial real estate agent doesn't know lick about what telecom or data is, but they get asked, hey, who's the best carrier for my building? Who should I get for internet? Is there a data center nearby? And they refer things over to other advisors or to AppDirect's sales desk to go and work those deals for them on their behalf. So there's different routes to market for the AppDirect advisor based on who they are. We also have a lot of folks that can choose to be providers actually within our marketplace because they have a unique brand or service, such as Plow, which
Right.
might want to be available in our marketplace for kind of click-through services. So we try to find the route to market that makes the most sense for the advisor. And then depending on where that advisor is, we can help someone if they've been working in the industry for 20 years, working for a telecommunications carrier, doing great business, they want to strike on their own. Awesome. We have programs and setups for that. But if you're maybe a young college kid, entrepreneur, really wants to dig in and start your own business, we can help with that as well. And that's one of our little things that we always like to help folks either start or scale their business. Either route, AppDirect can help you.
Gotcha. All right. So let's take kind of a step up because I feel like if AppDirect didn't exist, we'd have to make it up in some senses with the way the internet and selling kind of what that whole ecosystem looks like these days. But let's talk about buying behavior and what changes have you seen in buying behavior maybe over the last 10 years or so? Because you've been doing this a while, kind of like, I think I'm older than you, but you've been in this game a while. So you've seen a lot happen over the past 10, 20 years. What changes in buying behavior have you seen recently? And I know it's hard to sort of quantify, but the role of technology, especially sort of the internet and the sort of comparison shopping and at least the perception that you can do everything online. What kind of impact has that had from your perspective? And do you feel like AppDirect is taking advantage of that, or is a sort of an answer to that? And that's a loaded question, but I think hopefully you get what I'm going with it.
I do. There's a lot to unpack there. So I'm actually going to come back to the role of the advisors because it's really key to what you asked. One of the biggest things we have seen is 10 years ago, it was not uncommon within a company, you would have an IT director that would work with their computer guy or gal, right? Their IT company. You would have maybe the office manager would work regarding their communications, the phone system, the PBX. And then if there was something advanced and cool, heck, that could be the CEO or the CFO or the company, and that's something that they owned. And within each of these, not only do you have different carriers and providers involved, but you have different points of contact.
Right.
You might have that PBX company, you'll have a communications vendor, you'll have your local data IT, you might have your data center company, and they're all different.
Yep.
What customers are really demanding is a single place to go for all of that. And that's putting a lot of demands on all those different types of technology advisors. I can't just be the local computer guy anymore. I have got to understand how voice works and how Microsoft Teams works and associated software. I can't just be the data center guy who's managing colo anymore. I've got to understand that they're going to come to me and ask about internet access communications at their office, their software, sometimes their energy spend, which is tying more and more into that. And that's true of the single point of contact for the advisor. They want one person to go to. The other problem is more and more of this is sitting on the IT director's world at the individual customer. Office manager doesn't care about phones anymore because it's a Microsoft Teams license. That's IT.
Right.
Everything is coming back to an already beleaguered division in most companies. IT never has enough people. They're always yelled at. They're always, why isn't my computer working? My little device isn't doing what I said it did. Well, Margaret, that's because you loaded spyware on it, but that's a whole other issue.
Right.
And they're screaming. They're looking for a single human being to work with. But for the last piece is they're becoming more and more educated because before they talk to a human being, they have researched 5,000 things online, some of which are legit, some aren't. They've asked their AI tool and they're coming in looking at, in some cases, especially if they're a younger decision maker, they don't want to deal with a human being until they really, really need one. They want to be able to point, click, and if they screw something up, to get a human, or if they really don't know what they're doing, to get a human. But if they know what they want, I want to buy a bunch of Zoom licenses and I want to set up colo at a tier point facility. I want to be able to go just on my little machine and do it.
Sure.
So that's the world that we're dealing with. Consolidated technology advisor, unfortunately, a consolidated customer contact that's overburdened, and that same contact really wanting to know as much as possible before they even interface with either a human being or technology.
Yeah, it's funny. In listening to that all makes sense to me, and it all checks out with sort of what we see and experience. What's interesting in that is there's a natural tension between the second and third component of that, which is the time strapped. There's a couple of pieces. One, the desire for a single point of contact who can help you solve all of your technology problems. Right? There's a real challenge there because that implies a breadth of knowledge that most people don't have. Right now, They don't, even if you're just a conduit to solutions, it still presupposes you know the right questions to ask to help people get matched up, right? So that's a challenge that I'm guessing you guys help your advisors with, because there's no question that advisors, our guys get it, our guys and gals get it all the time. Left field questions, what I'd call left field technology. Hey, can you guys, what do you think we ought to do about X? And it's like, I mean, we have no idea. I mean, it's about, and I feel like our team is pretty knowledgeable, but I mean, you just can't know everything, right? As far as technology.
No, you can't, but I'm a big fan of the term technologist, because I think the advisors out there need to have kind of a working knowledge of how things fit. One of the things that AppDirect does is we train our advisors and our customers on this concept we call technology wheel, which has 8 different product families that all end up connecting together, often to that same IT director. And just having an idea of a little bit of where it fits. And then they can rely on someone like an AppDirect to provide this specificity.
That's a hard one to say.
That's going to go great on the podcast. It's a hard one, but the specifics, the specifics of the individual providers and carriers, so that they can make the best decision. But if you're getting technology, and this is the challenge for some of these guys, is you have to go outside your box, much like Plow has done, to really get kind of at least a tangential knowledge of all these different little pieces, because that's what your customers are expecting from you.
Yeah, and I think that's a challenge. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying it can't be done.
It's not easy.
And I think you giving some taxonomies, your the wheel that you mentioned, or some sort of structured, understanding of how pieces and parts go together, I think is critical. I do think, and I see it in the eyes of some of the folks that are in our space. It's a scary proposition to sit in front of a client and be seen as a conduit to expertise, even if they don't expect you to be the expert, right? So that's certainly a challenge, I think, for the technologist in today's world, compared to your point 10 years ago or 15 years ago, where you had to know phone, you had to know voice, or you had to know data center, or you had to know, storage or something. And that's all. No one was going to ask you about anything else. Like, you literally could be, deep in one particular area and make a living doing that. That's hard to do these days. The other piece, or the other tension or challenge that I wanted to get your thoughts on, is this idea of buyers. Again, let's stick with the IT director as sort of our talisman here, or primary person, has more and more that's fallen on his or her plate over the years. All things technology, not enough people, not enough money necessarily, right? There's a lot of stress associated with that, especially in a decent sized organization, and yet it feels like that same individual, the message is, I want to research and I want to self-serve and make my own decisions, which implies a significant amount of time commitment to sourcing and finding solutions. So how is AppDirect? How are you guys dealing with that from that perspective? What are you guys doing to try to help create information to speed that process along for buyers, right? If they want to self-serve, ideally they'd buy it themselves, right? You're no different than I am. I'm sure nowadays, I find myself sometimes spending more time to order something online than I could have just picked up the phone and called the restaurant. As an example, I use online ordering platforms sometimes to order food, and I could have just called and gotten it done faster. But that's not what I do now, right? And I feel like there's some of this going on in our world as well. And I'm just curious to get how are you guys handling that particular issue?
So 2 parts to that. First part is, everything that AppDirect does comes through our advisors. So because we are an indirect sales organization, customers generally interface with us first via their advisor. So let's say they talk with Plow and they have a technology problem. You bring in AppDirect to solve it. At that point, we provide the customer with our marketplace, because it's very important to us as a channel organization. As Nick Demaray likes to say, our CEO, we are radically channel. Everything to us always starts with the advisor. So when that advisor brings them in, though, the value of that marketplace is they've got a ton of those research tools built in for them to take advantage of, whether it's figuring out, at the most basic level, what carriers are available in their area, or it's looking at reviews for various different types of software platforms to see how they match up. How many stars does Microsoft 365 have versus Google Workspace via Zoom Workspace. All that information is provided in our marketplace platform. And we go to great pains to pull that information not only from the provider community, but also from third-party sources and our own customer reviews. Because I think that just like when you're trying to figure out what bottle of shampoo to buy on Amazon, those reviews are super critical. You want to know what your peers have experienced with that. We also work to make sure our advisors are incredibly knowledgeable. We have tons of educational programs for them, both in person and online, certifications, et cetera, to get them up to speed so they can speak to what a security solution is for the customer. And so that they can give them that ammo to understand what is a good security solution that they need to implement. And the second part of this is why that's so critical. One of the worst things that we saw over my last 5 to 10 years and part of it was COVID caused, but not necessarily all of it, was this pressure from a CEO, a well-meaning CEO, and a lot of times saying, "Hey, IT director, we got to go cloud." Okay, how do we do that? Don't know, just got to go do it. And the IT directors, what ended up happening, we had a lot of folks that bought a lot of stuff that they didn't need.
Right.
Now, some of that was oops on the advisor part, the carrier's part, the customer's part, just folks not knowing what the heck they were doing because it was so new. I don't want to see that happen again. And we're taking great strides. A good example again is AI, making sure that the tools and the services that we're putting in place are solid, that they're well reviewed, that they've got great security solutions behind them. And so that a customer can, whether they interface via our marketplace provided to them by the advisor, or they pick up the phone and call Bryan over at Plow, they've got a human being that they can talk to. They got to have somebody knowledgeable. And it's our goal as that platform, both for human beings and via our tools, to give that type of information out to both the advisor and the customer so that the advisor can recommend the right thing and the advisor can make the best purchase possible.
That makes sense. And I think, you mentioned radically channel, which I certainly appreciate. I know one of the questions I was going to ask you was about seller trust and advisor trust and how have you guys built that? One of the great ways you do that is you don't have any conflicts there of also selling stuff direct, right? I'm not sure. I mean, not to denigrate some of the telecoms that do both channel sales and direct, but it does introduce all kinds of problems into the process because you can have literally a company talking to a customer two different ways about a potential opportunity, and that can cause a lot of heartburn. So you guys have avoided that. So good on you.
Well, it wasn't easy. I mean, our name is AppDirect, and that comes from the fact that we were a platform only for the first 5 years of our existence.
Right.
Actually, let me do the math. Yeah, that's right. First 9 years of our existence. Sorry. But it was an enterprise level marketplace platform that we were selling. It was really easy to turn that into a channel flow. That was very, very simple. So we got lucky there, but it was also the established name of our company. And we're kind of, we like it. It's catchy.
Yeah, it is. It's quick. It's a tight name, which I like a lot. So I get it.
Forrester likes it a lot too. So we want to keep it that way.
There you go. Along those lines, since we're talking, I introduced at least a little bit of a foreshadowing on legacy, but where do you see legacy distributors fitting into this picture, and how are they sort of adjusting to this new world, right? And you can take that kind of however you want. That could be traditional third-party distribution, or it could be carriers and telecoms that used to do legacy distribution one way and are now trying to figure out alternative models.
It's a very, very complex question that I could probably wax about 2 hours on. So I'm going to try to give you the 2-minute version. Without giving too many hits at my distinguished competition. But I think for folks that are non-marketplace built, they're discovering that you've got to have a need for some sort of marketplace strategy, because we know, and I cite our multiple sources on this at Channel Futures and their organization that they just bought for all their channel knowledge, Canalys, that 80% of digital transactions that are going to be in our tech space are going to happen through a digital channel over the next 5 years. So we know customers want a marketplace experience. They want a 24/7 experience. And I think AppDirect is unique, not trying to toot our own horn too much, but we're very much ahead of the curve because we started as a marketplace company and have since embraced channel and consulting and all that fun stuff. So you've got to have that kind of strategy, but it's a complete change, especially if you've heretofore been your systems are only for your advisors, for example. We do stuff that is available to end user customers.
Right.
That's a big difference. And then when I look at some of the larger, more traditional disty type partners, they're trying to figure out how to move beyond just a value added reseller motion, where here's my widget, I'm giving it to somebody who's going to then mark it up and resell it, to provide that full catalog out to end user customers without angering all their existing resellers.
Right. Right.
Because then you start getting to, and some of the larger providers have been dealing with this for years, where there's like price online with one area and a price online with another area. The two don't match. Customer gets confused, and you know what they almost always think? Somebody's trying to screw me over.
That's right.
Which is not the case. It's just different models, right? But the customer doesn't care. They want the best price possible to give them the best value, and everyone's having to deal with that in some way. So to boil it down, whether you're a traditional disty, whether you're a TSD for channel partners, everybody's got to have kind of some strategy of how to address customers' needs for a marketplace. Yeah. AppDirect is well suited for that, and I welcome all my competition.
I got it. So, when you look at the state of buying today and you think about making decisions, what are buyers from, based on both direct and indirect feedback in the sense of direct from customers and also from advisors, what are buyers worrying about the most when it comes, and I'm going to use complex IT purchases, not simple, not the basics, because those are basic by definition, but something that's more complex, I won't say necessarily bet the business, but something along those lines, a big deal, right? Could put IT in the news, could cause real disruptions, operations, that sort of thing. When it comes to making complex IT purchases, what are buyers worrying about? And in your opinion, are they worrying about the right things?
Ooh. One of the benefits of working here is you see so many different types of customers. I mean, literally, just on my little funnel board, the deals that I actually touch, there might be 100 or so working in the funnel at any one time with all different types of customers. I would say customers are worried about getting left behind. And a lot of that's coming to the AI discussion because they've got that CEO going, same CEO that said, let's go cloud, now going, let's go AI.
Yeah.
So they're very focused on, what AI or what technology can do to help the company. What I think gets lost in the shuffle a lot of times and should be the same law of any telecom consultant is same as a doctor, do no harm. Analyzing what the impacts of these changes are going to be. We oftentimes get too caught up in, this is going to save me 20% on my current bill. It's going to optimize my licensing, or this is going to make it easier for my customers. We don't think so much about, what is this change going to do? Is it a change that's necessary to move the business forward? And if it is, you absolutely do it. But if it is change for change's sake only, I caution you always to pause. Is it necessary to do it now? Is it, and what's the impact of that change going to be? Because that's that unaccounted for cost to either your customer experience or your personal experience as the end user. That's what gets you in trouble. Other thing that people forget about is it doesn't matter how much we yell about it, it's security. Although we have more discussions on security than ever before, we still have customers that just feel like it will not happen to them. They will not get hacked. The carrier that they're working with will not get compromised. Their passwords won't get picked up because they're small fry. No one's going to care what happens to Chris Shubert Incorporated, right? They do. And it happens on the daily. And we've even seen, even if you pick the biggest carriers on the planet that are amazing at security, CrowdStrike, bulletproof platform, absolute amazing platform. By the way, they handled their issue better than anybody else on the platform. Anyone could possibly have handled that situation. But if they can get attacked, so can you.
Yeah.
And you've got to have a multi-tiered strategy. I mean, in the best world, you've got your endpoint protected. You've got someone watching the gate, either internal or external, and heck, back that up with an insurance policy, because it's going to. It's just a question of when.
I was having a conversation with someone about zero trust the other day. We were talking about the principles, and I was like, well, there's really only you have to start with the primary principle first, which is assume a breach, right? That's the one they don't want to talk about that much, but like it's the way it is, right? I mean, and so you got to go, you got to accept, you got to drink that, you got to take that bitter pill and just deal with it. I don't think there's really much else you can do.
My favorite story recently, and I'll keep this very, very short due to time here, but just it was the hospital. It was the hospital that got attacked by one of those little evil cyber pirates. They're holding them hostage, right? We hear about that all the time.
Yep.
And they were able to go, oh, too bad. Click, restart, and reboot with all their data and just wiped them out of the system. Didn't have to pay a ransom to these guys. That's what you want to be. You want to be able to know that if it's 5 clicks, you can restart your business. If something happens, God help you if you're a victim of a natural disaster, which the time of this taping, we're dealing with the stuff that's going in California. You just got to be able to know that I can restore my data in a second. And I will tell you, you need to be able to do that for yourself, not just your company too.
It's true. It's true. So we'll kind of come to the end here. As you look ahead and you think about kind of the next 2-3 years, so not a long time frame, but looking ahead, what excites you about the next 2 to 3 years? What are you most looking, when you think about that kind of time frame, what gets you jumping?
Okay. You want to get fun, Brian? You want to get fun? We're talking about these digital assistants right now in terms of, Gemini, Copilot, et cetera, these AI assistants and how quickly they're learning and getting better at things. I'm really excited about selling robotics because it's already starting to be on the periphery of the ability to provide robotic answers for customers. I almost got ran over by a little droid in Charlotte not too long ago that was delivering a package. And I know some of this stuff seems a little scary and seems a little Star Wars, Star Trek, sci-fi, but it's a reality for us. And understanding how this incredible leap forward we're taking in the world of AI, I'm going to be that person that, and I might be wrong, and if so, the Terminator will come and get me. But I believe that by embracing this, we're actually going to make humanity better, because we're going to be focusing on the things that matter and not wasting ourselves in time wasting activities that don't really move the needle, and put the brilliance of human intelligence, human ingenuity, and human working in areas where it really matters. I think it's going to benefit everybody, rich, poor, every single class. The technology that's coming is pretty exciting. It's a heck of a lot better than just saying, "Oh, cool, I've got a new UCAS seat." That's cool too. But the fact that we might be on the cusp of things that are really going to change the way people live and operate, that's exciting.
Well, with that, I always like to wrap up with something personal, not too personal, but it's a little personal. So I want to ask you, can you share something that you've read or watched lately that you think others ought to check out?
Oh, great. That's always a fun one.
And I'm guessing you're not going to say Westworld. No, just a speculation.
Although I do watch a lot of you know what? Heck, we'll go with a fun one here. I am a huge fan, as many folks know, of superheroes and sci-fi and such. It's kind of my thing. It's kind of a geek thing that I do. If you haven't checked out Superman and Lois before you watch the new movie coming this year, it's on Max. It's the best Superman you will ever see. It's Superman and his family, and it's all hopes and how our family works together. And you can't watch it but not feel happy and feel like a little kid watching the stuff. So check out Superman and Lois.
Will do. I have not watched that one, so I'll have to check it out. My son keeps me up to date on some of the comic and some of the Marvel DC stuff, so I'll have to dive into that one. So, all right. Well, listen, Chris, we'll wrap there and let you get back to it. Thanks so much for being on Cut the Shit. We really appreciate it.
All right. Take care, Bryan. Bye.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you are enjoying the podcast, we'd appreciate it if you would become a subscriber wherever you get your podcasts. And if you could rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, that would really help us out. Or you can just go old school and tell your friends, your family, your colleagues, and hell, anybody else who you think might want to hear something like this to listen in. If you're on social media, make sure to follow us on TikTok at @CutTheShitPod, all one word, where we post lots of clips from the podcast. And last but not least, you can also watch the YouTube version of the show on our YouTube channel at Plow Networks. Until next time, take care and have a great day.